For 7 years, Eleanor Thompson lived completely alone in a small house at the end of Maple Street. Her children never called her grandchildren, never visited neighbors, assumed she was just another forgotten elderly woman waiting to die. But when a social worker finally entered her home for a welfare check, what she discovered hidden in that house was so shocking, so incredibly heartbreaking, that it made national news and forced an entire family to face the devastating truth about who they had abandoned and why. Eleanor was 83 years old when this story begins. She had 3 children, Robert, Susan, and Michael, and 7 grandchildren scattered across the country. But none of them had set foot in her house since 2016. They didn't call on her birthday, didn't send cards at Christmas, didn't check if she was eating or taking her medications, and when neighbors asked about her family, Eleanor would just smile sadly and say they're very busy with their own lives, as if that explained the complete abandonment of a woman who had raised them, sacrificed for them, and loved them unconditionally for decades. The social worker, a young woman named Amanda Chen, was assigned to Eleanor's case after a mail carrier noticed that Eleanor's mailbox was overflowing and hadn't been emptied in 2 weeks. Amanda knocked on the door for 10 minutes before Eleanor finally answered, moving slowly with a walker, her clothes hanging loose on her frail frame. And when Amanda asked if she could come inside to check on her well-being, Eleanor hesitated for a long moment before quietly opening the door wider and letting her in. What Amanda saw inside that house defied every expectation. She had prepared herself for the usual signs of elderly neglect, spoiled food, dirty dishes, maybe some hoarding, but instead, the house was immaculate. Everything was clean and organized. There were fresh flowers in vases, family photos in polished frames on every surface, and the smell of homemade bread filled the air. It looked like a grandmother's house should look, warm and welcoming and full of love. Except there was nobody there to receive that love, nobody at all. Amanda sat down with Eleanor and started asking the standard welfare questions, and that's when things started to feel strange. Eleanor answered every question perfectly. She was eating well, taking her medications, managing her finances. She seemed completely capable and independent. But there was something about the way she kept glancing toward a closed door at the end of the hallway, something about the way her hands trembled when Amanda asked about her family, and Amanda's instincts, honed by years of social work, told her there was more to this story than a simple case of family estrangement. When Amanda gently asked about the closed door, Eleanor's entire demeanor changed. Her eyes filled with tears, and she said in a whisper, "That's where I keep them. That's where I keep all of them." And Amanda felt a chill run down her spine because she had no idea what that meant. Was Eleanor keeping something dangerous, something illegal, something that explained why her family had abandoned her? Eleanor slowly stood up, gripped her walker, and shuffled toward the door. Amanda followed, her heart pounding, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. And when Eleanor opened that door, Amanda gasped and covered her mouth with her hand because what she saw in that room was absolutely heartbreaking. The room was filled, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, with handmade quilts, hundreds of them, each one a masterpiece of intricate stitching and vibrant colors, and pinned to every single quilt was a tag with a name and a date. Amanda stepped closer and started reading the tags. Robert's graduation quilt, Susan's wedding quilt, Michael's first home quilt, Emma's birthday quilt. There were quilts for every milestone, every celebration, every moment of her children's and grandchildren's lives for the past 7 years, quilts that Eleanor had made with her arthritic hands, pouring hours and days and months of love into every stitch, quilts that were meant to be gifts but had never been given because nobody ever came to receive them. Eleanor stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her wrinkled face, and she explained everything to Amanda. She said that 7 years ago, there had been a family argument about money. Eleanor's late husband had left a modest inheritance, and the children had expected to receive it immediately. But Eleanor had decided to donate most of it to a children's hospital in her husband's name because he had always wanted to help sick children. Her children were furious. They called her selfish, accused her of stealing their inheritance, and one by one, they cut her out of their lives completely, blocking her phone number, returning her letters unopened, refusing to let her see her grandchildren, and Eleanor, devastated and alone, channeled all her grief and love into making quilts, one for every occasion she was missing, every birthday party she wasn't invited to, every graduation she wasn't allowed to attend, every Christmas morning she spent alone while her family celebrated without her. Amanda stood in that room, surrounded by hundreds of quilts that represented 7 years of unconditional love being poured into an empty void, and she made a decision that would change everything. She took photos of the quilts, of the tags, of Eleanor's tear-stained face, and she posted them on social media with a simple caption, "This is what abandonment looks like. This is what happens when families choose money over love. This grandmother has been making quilts for a family that refuses to see her, and I think it's time they knew what they've been missing." The post went viral overnight. Millions of people saw Eleanor's story. News outlets picked it up. Reporters showed up at her door, and suddenly the entire country was talking about this elderly woman who had been abandoned over money but never stopped loving the people who abandoned her. People were outraged, heartbroken, inspired by Eleanor's unwavering love, and devastated by her children's cruelty. And within 48 hours, Eleanor's children started receiving calls, messages, emails from people all over the world, calling them out, demanding they make things right, telling them they should be ashamed of what they had done to their mother. Robert was the first to show up at Eleanor's door. 3 days after the story broke, Amanda was there when he arrived, and she watched as this middle-aged man stood on his mother's porch, tears running down his face, holding a quilt tag she had posted online, the one that said Robert's graduation quilt. His son had graduated from high school 2 years ago, and Eleanor had made a quilt to celebrate, even though she hadn't been invited, even though she had never met her teenage grandson, even though her son had blocked her number and refused to speak to her for 7 years. Eleanor opened the door and just looked at him, this son who had abandoned her, who had chosen money and pride over his own mother, and Robert fell to his knees and sobbed, saying he was sorry over and over again, saying he had made a terrible mistake, that he had been angry and stupid and cruel, and he didn't expect forgiveness, but he needed her to know that he was wrong, so completely and devastatingly wrong. Eleanor didn't say anything for a long moment. She just stood there with her walker looking down at her son crying on her porch. And then she did something that made Amanda start crying too. She reached out her fragile hand, placed it on his head, and said, "I never stopped loving you, not for a single day. Come inside and take your quilts home. They've been waiting for you." One by one, over the following weeks, all 3 of Eleanor's children came back. Susan came with her daughters, sobbing as she saw the quilts her mother had made for birthdays and graduations she had deliberately excluded her from. Michael came with his wife, devastated by the baby quilt Eleanor had made when his daughter was born, a granddaughter Eleanor had never been allowed to meet, and each of them had to face the physical evidence of their cruelty, piles of quilts representing years of love they had rejected, years of their mother's life they had stolen from her, years they could never get back. The family reunion was difficult. There were tears, apologies, brutal, honest conversations about money and pride and the devastating cost of holding grudges. Eleanor's children had to reckon with what they had done, how they had let anger over an inheritance turn them into people who could abandon their own mother, who could keep their children from knowing their grandmother, who could ignore the woman who gave them life for 7 years over something as meaningless as money. But here's the twist that nobody expected. During one of these family meetings, Susan found a letter in Eleanor's desk, a letter that had been returned unopened years ago. And when she opened it, she discovered something that changed everything. The letter explained that Eleanor hadn't actually donated all of the inheritance. She had put most of it into trust funds for each of her grandchildren, funds that would be accessible when they turned 18. She had only donated a portion to the hospital. and she had tried to tell her children this, but they had been so angry they refused to listen, refused to read her letters, refused to give her a chance to explain. They had abandoned their mother over money she had actually saved for their children, money that was always meant for the family. They had just been too consumed by rage and entitlement to find out the truth. The guilt that followed this discovery was crushing. Eleanor's children realized they had thrown away 7 years with their mother, had deprived their children of knowing their grandmother, had caused immeasurable pain to a woman who had never stopped loving them. All because they made assumptions, because they chose pride over communication, because they let money destroy what should have been unbreakable. And now Eleanor was 83 years old, frail and growing weaker, and those 7 years were gone forever. No amount of apologies or quilts or family dinners could bring back that time. Eleanor forgave them, of course she did, because that's what mothers do. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. She had missed 7 years of her grandchildren's lives, birthdays and first days of school and soccer games and dance recitals, moments that can never be recreated or recovered, and her children had to live with the knowledge that they caused that loss, that their mother spent 7 years alone making quilts for people who hated her loving people, who had abandoned her, waiting for a reconciliation that almost never came. Today, Eleanor is 85. Her family visits regularly. Now her grandchildren know her and love her, and those quilts are displayed proudly in every family member's home, constant reminders of the price of pride and the power of unconditional love. Amanda still visits Eleanor too, and she says that this case changed her entire perspective on family conflict, because she learned that sometimes the people we abandon are the people who love us most. And sometimes we don't realize what we've lost until the internet shows us a room full of quilts that represent everything we threw away. Eleanor's story went viral for a reason. It touched something deep in people's hearts. The fear that we might be taking our loved ones for granted. The guilt of knowing we could be better children, better parents, better family members. And the hope that it's never too late to make things right. As long as the people we love are still alive to hear us say we're sorry. If this story broke your heart like it broke mine, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful true stories that will change the way you see the world. Share this video with your family because maybe they need a reminder to call their grandmother, their parents, the people they've been taking for granted, and drop a comment telling us about a time you almost lost someone because of pride or anger. Let's learn from Eleanor's story together. Let's choose love over grudges. Let's make that call before it's too late, because someday there won't be any more chances. Someday there will just be a room full of unmade quilts and words we never got to say. So make today count. Make that connection, and remember that no amount of money is worth losing the people who love you unconditionally, no matter what.